Oh, landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess. And Sonic the Hedgehog gave me pink eye. But do me a favor and hit that like button, or I will move every chair in your house 3 inches to the left, and then I won't tell you about the week I spent carrying this Ozark Trail gift set knife. So, before the comments show up, which they are starting to show up, this is not a case of local idiots surprised cheap knife is cheap. This is something I wanted to check out for you guys because this is what we do. We look for diamonds in the rough. We look for things that are very cheap, but also very good. This is not one of those, but let's take a look at what we're holding because it'll bother you if I don't, and you know I love you. And first things first, and most importantly, the pocket clip is tip up, which is the Lord's carry, and also a rarity for Ozark Trail. We have got the tan G10 scales. We got thumb studs. Let's flick the studs. And we have right at 3 inches of 3CR13 steel. Walmart made the mistake of accidentally listing the steel on the website for once. So now that that's out of the way, during our last live stream, I brought out the gift set, and you guys picked from the knives in the gift set which one you wanted me to carry, and y'all went with the Tanto. The other two knives in the gift set have been given away to coworkers. I stropped those and lubricated them to make sure they were in pretty good shape, and I distributed them accordingly. So before I carried this, I was taking a look at it, and my thoughts were it would be fairly inoffensive. It has got its problems, my God. So let's take a look at the problems we got, because a couple of those were not expected. And one thing to note, the centering on this is god-awful. It is god-awful. Come on, focus. It's rubbing the frame whenever you close it and open it. Unless you push down on the thumb studs and push it back towards the center when you open it, it's rubbing the frame of the knife. And the other knife in the set that was doing that, I couldn't ever get it to stop scrubbing the frame. No amount of moving the pivot screw around really helped on this one, which was a bit of a surprise. Normally, that'll do something. Not in this case. And let's see if we can get this on camera. Let's see if we can get it. Your thumb studs right here are not lined up. They are cocked a good bit this way. So you can kind of see here, like they are not in a straight line at all. Which I found that about a day after I started carrying it. I'm looking at it, I'm fidgeting with it. And one thing that did happen is the thumb studs are a little bit wider than the scales. A little bit wider than the scales. So the thumb stud, it'll be in my pocket. And this right here would get tangled up in the hem of my pocket, and there were times where it partially deployed. It was about this far open when I pulled it out of the pocket, which was highly annoying. A lot of guys do like that wave function, and yes, when you have control of the wave function and you can predict it happening, not a bad thing. But when you're not planning on it and you don't want it to happen, not a great thing. The detent. The detent on it is very, very light. It's almost non-existent, which would be a major issue, but the pivot screw is so tight and it's on plastic washers that it does a pretty good job of holding it closed. Now, that being said, it will centrifugal open. I discovered that one of my managers at work was showing me the Kaiser drop bear that he wanted to buy, and he was thinking about it, so I'm talking to him about axis locks and centrifugal opening because he's fairly new to the knife game. He hasn't really experienced a lot yet besides the Ozark Trail axis locks. So I'm kind of letting him know. It's a great knife. You can centrifugal open it. Let me show you how we do that. You hold it like this. And then I was like, oh my God, this one centrifugal opens? Hell yeah. And I was like, wait a second. This is just because the detent is so light. Like, it is virtually non-existent. But it keeps itself closed. Props where they're due. It keeps itself closed in spite of an almost non-existent detent. The pocket clip was reasonably skookum. The dingus end right here is on the lower side. It's not raised up quite far enough to be the world's easiest to get over the hem of a pocket, but it did do the job. So I can't really argue with that there. The pocket clip, skookum enough. It is a strong pocket clip. Like, that is a very strong pull. That I don't have any worries about. The biggest thing about this, and I did feed it some cardboard. I fed it some cardboard, and it didn't quite cut as well as the other Ozark Trails I've had with this kind of hollow grind on them did. I'm not sure why. And it probably boils down to the edge, because the edge was it performed very erratically. I think we just don't have like a really good grind all along the bevel here, and it kind of changes angles as you go. I've got a feeling that's the issue. I'm not 100%. That's where we run into a knowledge gap on my end. But, we had times where I was cutting plastic off of the pallets and it blazed right through it, no sweat. We had other times where I did that cut and it was just wadding the plastic up and tearing it and not cooperating with me on that. We had times where cutting cardboard, it did decent, not great. And then there were times where it just froze mid cut and I had to kind of saw a little bit to break it loose and then finish the cut off. Uh, the cuts were very, very unpredictable and quite erratic. Very, very weird. I don't think I've encountered that in a long time, and it's certainly been long enough that, my knowledge gap back then was a gaping chasm compared to what it is now. And I've said it before, I am learning these things as I go. I am no expert, and y'all are watching me learn this stuff as I go. So hopefully there's entertainment value in that for you. But let's take a look at the edge. Let's get that out of the way before I forget to do that. And y'all can see, like, that's actually better than it was when I took it out of the box. And I think that cardboard knocked a bit of a burr off, which could have been part of the problem. But even after the burr got knocked off or whatever happened, still not cutting too reliably. Let's get the edge tester out that you guys kindly provided for the channel. Thank you so, so much. Let's get a clip loaded up and see how she do on that one. Because I think it was like the 260s or 270s the last time I tested it whenever we did the first video on it. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. It's been a week. So what do we got in here? I'm arming the boy. Everybody take cover. All right, we're just going to get one test. So 297. So it has degraded a little bit, and it's 3CR13, and with the handful of cardboard cuts I pushed it through, I am not surprised at all. Now, all that's out of the way. That's a lot of the stuff that I experienced that I remember distinctly that I wanted to cover for you guys. And so this is probably one of the cheapest and worst knives I have felt in a long time. I haven't felt anything that felt quite this bad day to day in a while. And a lot of those were like Temu knives, gas station knives, stuff like that. With the newer Ozark Trails, I am a little bit surprised at just how bad it was. Because, the other Ozark Trails that I've gotten have been at least good enough to function and carry without really feeling the awfulness quite so much. The stuff that was awful was kind of weird design decisions. Of course, the 3CR13 steel. Stuff like that, access to the liner lock, and then of course you've got the axis locks, which for the price are just great. If they were more expensive, no. Before those comments roll in, if they were more expensive than they were, I'd have to say pass. The Orange D2, if the heat treatment was consistent through those blades, I'd recommend it every day of the week, even at 20 or 30 bucks if the heat treatment was like the ones I have. But those are so hit or miss that you're not sure what you're getting. So above 10 bucks, nah. The Storm Pooper, above $5 with that 3CR13, nah. So, yeah, and I mean, this thing felt incredibly cheap. Like, again, it felt way cheaper than the other Ozark Trails I have carried in quite a while, like that I've carried in the last, I don't know how long now. But as cheap and nasty as this felt, I had a great idea. I handed this to the wife. I handed it to the much better half, and I said, hey, tell me how cheap you think this feels. Because once you've handled enough knives and your standards start getting higher and higher and you're looking for, better and better build quality and details, all of a sudden stuff that didn't feel that cheap a couple of years ago feels god-awful now. And I handed it to her, and she played with it for a second, and she didn't really have anything to say one way or the other. She said, she didn't like the way the scales were chamfered. Ooh, $5 word again. But, she didn't like the way the edges of the scales felt, but otherwise, she didn't have anything really to say about it. It didn't feel too far from any other knife she's handled. She hasn't handled a ton, which was part of why I was like, you know what? Let's see if somebody that hasn't handled a lot of knives thinks it feels as cheap as I do. So I'm not sure how much value that particular nugget of information has. But for someone that's not super into knives and hasn't handled a ton of them, apparently, at least in her case, it wasn't that remarkable. It didn't feel that terrible to her, which is, I think it might be something interesting that I'm going to start adding is just hand it to someone that's not a knife person, say, does this feel cheap or not? And see what they say. So, just overall, this was a just nasty, nasty week as far as carrying this thing. If you took me out this week, I was going to be dropping common loot. That's just how it is. And we're going to do Cardboard Slayer on it. We're going to use the pull-through sharpener that came with it to see if that makes the slightest bit of difference. I'm going to practice sharpening a Tonto on the Precision Adjust, and I'll probably practice some freehand sharpening on it just to see if maybe I can get it better than I did last time. But, I mean, and I will tell you, I am so burned out on these Ozark Trails. Like, this has been a long season. I am looking forward to a few weeks of carrying some nicer stuff. Of course, the Gin Rhino was a welcome break. Of course, the Civivi was a welcome break. That Zizzle. But I am so tired of seeing these. I am so tired. And I should have some of the new version of the Ozark Trail D2s showing up, which those aren't going to be this experience. But these bottom of the barrel Ozark Trails, I'm so tired of them. So we are done with these for a while. I'm not going to be carrying another just bottom of the barrel poverty spec Ozark Trail for a good little while. This has been a fun season of carrying them. I definitely enjoyed carrying these and showing them to y'all, but I'm burnt. So I really can't think of a lot to add that I haven't covered here. I will remember something about an hour after I finish this video, and that's okay. But all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Y'all keep coming in. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We have our live streams, regular videos. There's plenty of activities. Comments. I love some feedback. Let me know what you think about this thing. And even if you have to say local idiot surprise cheap knife is cheap, let me have it. And all that being said, y'all have a nice day.